Hello and welcome to episode 544 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. It is, of course, time for the weekly show you cannot live without, Market Monday. Yes, that's right. Each Monday, I go over the biggest risers and fallers in average draft position, aka ADP, from the previous 7 days. Discuss whether I'm buying or selling these players at their new prices. The idea is to get you up to speed very quickly on what's happening in the best ball markets. Before we get into it here today, reminder that if you're the type of person listening to a fantasy football market update podcast in the beginning of April, you should be putting your knowledge to work in Underdog Fantasy. Promo code ETR will get you up to $100 in free entries. They have massive best ball contest up already. Superflex is going right now. And quite frankly, the ADP is just wild right now. Will be some massive movement through the spring and summer. That's promo code ETR for up to $100 in entries at underdogfantasy.com. All right, let's begin with the risers from the last 7 days. Going to start with Israel Ibana Conda. Israel Ibana Conda is up 37.8 spots on Underdog, 31.9 spots on FFPC. I would not blame anyone if you have not heard of this kid. He was a 3-year player at Pitt, declared after his junior year, 5'10", 216, ran a 4.44 at Pitt's pro day. In his final year at Pitt, they went really run heavy after Kenny Pickett left. In his final year at Pitt, Izzy carries it 239 times for 1,431 yards, 20 rushing touchdowns, caught 12 balls. Also, I think that he'll probably end up going somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round of the NFL draft and can contribute as a committee back. That 3rd or 4th round is not one to be written off at the running back position. That's where Rashad White went last year, Brian Robinson, Dameon Pierce, Tyler Algier, who I'll talk about in a minute. He went in the 5th. Obviously, there's a ton of misses in that range also. Trey Sermon comes to mind. Pierre Strong doesn't look great right now. But, even like Michael Carter, Ramondre Stevenson, Chuba Hubbard, all those guys go in that. You went in that round 3, 4 range of the NFL draft. So on Izzy, the athletic profile is good. The production profile is very good. He'll get drafted in those middle rounds and have a chance. And, we see it every year with guys that go in that range of the draft having an impact late in the year in fantasy. That 13th round of the fantasy draft, 12th round right now. Yeah, I like taking shots there. Fantasy winning time is when often these rookie running backs end up being very, very valuable. Saw with Kenneth Walker, obviously a little bit different story there with his profile, and he was a high 2nd round pick, but still. I don't want the hype to get too out of control on this kid, but I understand, and I don't think I'm going to talk anyone out of a 13th round flyer on Israel Ibana Conda. Second riser is Irv Smith. Irv Smith is up 28 spots on both Underdog and FFPC. He's now going in the 160s range or so. Pretty concerning to me that the Vikings just stone gave up on Irv Smith. Like, they used the 50th overall pick on a tight end who was 20 years old. This is such a hard position to step right in at in the NFL. What did they think was going to happen? And yeah, Irv's battled injuries really badly. He's only played in 37 games in his 4 years with the Vikings, but has at least flashed some pass catching upside. The Vikings, though, just gave him the nah wave. Like, they gave Josh Oliver, this blocking tight end, Josh Oliver, a $21 million contract with $10.7 million guaranteed. They let Irv sign with the Bengals for effectively free, 1 year, $1.75 million, even though they just let Adam Thielen, a pass catcher, go. So look, I get it and all, but when you zoom out, it's concerning to me that the Vikings never even tried to bring Irv Smith back. Now, that said, Irv goes to Cincy, where he gets the quarterback upgrade. He's entering more of his prime at age 25. Hayden Hurst is gone. Irv Smith right now is competing with Devin Asiasi and team preseason star Tanner Hudson as his competition. This is a very good tight end draft class, so maybe the Bengals make a pick there. But for now, despite the hesitations, I think Irv as a 3rd tight end in these best ball formats, and honestly, it turns out to be such an important spot in best ball. If you don't get an elite one, going for 3, I think is typically good. And so your 3rd tight end as Irv, I think that's pretty strong right now. Riser number 3 is Tyler Algier. He's up 5.5 spots to 73rd Overall in FFPC, Alger was very good as a rookie. 210 carries for 1,035 yards, 3 touchdowns. In PFF strict rushing grades, Alger was 6th among 60 qualifying running backs. Only Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, Tony Pollard, and A.J. Dillon were better. So a really strong rookie year for Tyler Algier in one of the NFL's most run-happy offenses. Now, Algier's setup for year 2 is interesting. Yes, Cordero Patterson is still there, but he's 32 years old, fell off a bit late last season. Meanwhile, the most interesting thing, though, is the Falcons have been linked to Bijan Robinson in the draft. I think that would be a mistake at 8 overall, but it's a reminder that these 5th-round picks, like Tyler Algier was a 5th-round pick, regardless of how well these guys play, it just seems like teams are always looking for an upgrade, always looking for something else. So even if it's not Bijan at 8, maybe the Falcons take another running back at 44 or at 75. Either way, the fantasy football market is baking in that increased competition for Algier, and I think that's right. I would consider the ADP fair right now, but if the Falcons pass on any running back in the draft, that's going to look like a steal. If they come out and they're only going with Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson, and Caleb Huntley, Algier's ADP will rise. All right, let's get to this week's fallers. Joe Mixon is down 8.9 spots on Underdog, 7.6 spots on FFPC. I talked about him a couple weeks ago. Since then, it has been not a great 1 to 2 weeks for Joe Mixon. At the owners' meetings, reporters asked Bengals executive vice president Katie Blackburn about Mixon's status on the team. And you actually have to listen to this to get it. I mean, it sounds like this woman is in pain. Just a normal question about Joe Mixon. It sounds like she's in pain. I can't even do an imitation of her. You really need to listen to it. But basically, she's like, yeah, well, right now he's on the team. We are doing, we're going to count on him until that wouldn't be the case. We'll keep plugging along and hope that everything gets resolved for him one way or another. And at first, I thought this really weird comment and response was related to all the salary stuff with Joe Mixon, and she's just trying to hold some leverage in negotiations. In other words, they want Joe Mixon to lower his cap hit, lower his salary for this year. That's part of a whole other negotiation. She didn't want to tip her hand. Especially, after he got outplayed by Samaje Perine for much of last year, they can save around $7 million by cutting Joe Mixon. So I thought maybe it was related to that. But then a week later, news breaks that police are resubmitting a charge of aggravated menacing from that January incident with Mixon. It's a misdemeanor. Allegedly, Mixon pointed a gun at a woman on January 21, right before the Bengals left town to play the Bills. So yeah, not great. I was recently on the clock in a draft and I took Mixon at 91st overall. I think at that price, the risk reward is there. But clearly, there's a ton of risk here right now, and the NFL can step in regardless of how it plays out in court. So, we'll see what happens with Joe Mixon, but he's certainly sliding. No one wants him right now. Like I said, 91st overall, just so late. Second faller is Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz is down 6.7 spots on FFPC. I'm fine with Dalton Schultz. He's a fine player, played well for the Cowboys, but he's far from any kind of game breaker, any kind of elite player who can make plays on his own. He's a compiler, which is one of the reasons I was kind of out on him in the fantasy draft process last year. You listen to episode 429, I think it was, for more on that. But anyways, going from Dallas to Houston, I certainly have volume and efficiency concerns. Houston's going to be trailing probably more than Dallas was. But even when you're trailing a lot, it's hard to get a lot of passes off because you just don't get that many plays off. You don't get first downs. The Texans were atrocious last year. They were still only 25th in plays. They were 25th in plays per game. Cowboys were 8th, right? And so, it's hard to get a lot of pass attempts in that scenario when you're 25th in plays per game. Dak completed 66% of his passes. Davis Mills only completed 61%. So, yeah, I expect the Texans to have a rookie quarterback that's an upgrade on Davis Mills. But still, touchdowns, raw number of routes run, catch rate. I think that's all in jeopardy for Dalton Schultz. I've been passing on him even as he sinks. Last faller I wanted to get to here is Quentin Johnson, incoming rookie. He's down 11 spots to 126th overall on Underdog. This rookie wide receiver class, I don't know, man. A good chance no wide receivers even go in the top 15, and maybe only one or two end up going in round 1. And based on all the buzz lately, it appears Quentin Johnston has fallen behind the likes of Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers. I mean, heck, I've seen plenty of draft types who have Jordan Addison and Jalen Hyatt ahead of Quentin Johnston. And so even though he's 6'2", 208 with pretty good speed at 4.51, this is a reminder of how important draft capital is. I think fantasy people so often get caught up in their own evaluation. The NFL will tell us what they think of Quentin. And right now, it doesn't look great. If he goes late round 2 or round 3, it will be a big, big, big punch to his outlook. So yes, I like treading lightly here in drafts right now. Meanwhile, I like buying on Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison and Jalen Hyatt types, those whose draft stock may be underrated by the community and have a chance to go in round 1 or earlier than people expect. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Market Monday. Thanks so much for you to everyone for listening to these. Hope it helped. Let me know in the comments on iTunes or on YouTube if this is worth continuing each week and what you'd like to hear. We'll be back Tuesday with Silva and PFF's Mike Renner to talk through NFL draft prospects and what we think of them before we know their landing spot, which I think is important. For Bruce Luke, for Jerry, for the king himself, Jackson, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.